You're listening to a podcast from the Today programme on BBC Radio 4.
I was diagnosed as severely autistic age 3, but through the persistence of my mother, I believe I'm quite an articulate individual, and we've got the ability to write this book and to have worked where I worked, Manchester United Television, for 11.5 years. So It is a very wide spectrum, but hopefully I'm writing my book to give hope.
Give us an idea of the sorts of problems that you do have. I know that you, and I think this is true, isn't it, of most people with autism, you have obsessional behaviour. And
yes.
I was intrigued to read about The Simpsons on television. Tell us about that.
When I was a teenager and younger than that, when it was Christmas time, and obviously I couldn't go out the house when The Simpsons was on.
Right.
And what happened at Christmas, my sister used to sit down with my sister Melanie and make schedules of every time it was on BBC or Channel 4, and we couldn't have Christmas dinner until The Simpsons had been on.
Are you out of that now? Are you over that now?
Yes, The Simpsons, but obsessional behaviours come back from time to time, very much so.
And what sort of effects do they have on you when they do come back?
If I go into certain shops, I get really, really stressed because of smells in the shop or personal space issues.
But what is it about the smell in a shop?
Well, like yesterday, for instance, I was in a shop in Wrexham, and I could really smell this odour. And I think it was just somebody walking past, and it was a lady's perfume. And it really, I really threw me, really.
What does it do to you then when you smell that odour?
It could stress me out.
In what way?
When I was younger, I would become aggressive. Where more now, I will become more obnoxious. I might become abrupt, stern. And then, obviously, I have to talk my feelings and emotions through with my mother and my sister. And that helps, you see.
Well, indeed, and that's what's curious to those of us who don't understand, that you know that you're behaving in a completely irrational way, but you can't stop yourself.
It's quite hard, really. But then the thing is, this book I've written is really obviously I haven't found a publisher or literary agent yet, so hopefully there's a few listening. But this book is there as a support mechanism, really. I'd like to think for people who come in contact regularly with autism, professionals, families, carers who come into contact with autism on a regular basis. And I'd like to think this book, in some small way, will help those people in their day-to-day lives.
If you were to give a bit of advice to parents who have autistic children or carers who look after people with autism, what would the bit of advice be?
Never give up. Just be ready to fight all the way for every little ounce of anything you get, because now I don't get any support off anybody apart from my family. To get anywhere, even in education, was absolutely impossible. My mum had to fight to get anywhere for me. It was just terrible, and it doesn't change when you become an adult. You still have to put the same fight and same emotions into getting what that autistic person requires. And if you don't have a supportive family, then it's very, very hard, and I dread to think what would have happened to me without my family.
Can you understand why people might be scared of people like you? Because, as you say, you're capable of becoming violent, and that's a pretty frightening prospect, especially when you're a grown man, a strong man.
Yeah, well, not so much when I was a grown man. That was more when I was a child. But I can understand how I could, if you first met me, I'd recite statistics about your career, or just general statistics about sport or music. Now that can come across as very strange. I could recite facts about your career now, but
I'd rather you didn't.
Thank you, thank you, John. But the thing is, I would probably do that sometimes. But what it would be just a coping mechanism. Basically, statistics and pieces of trivia are who I am in a lot of respects, really.
So when we see a film like The Rain Man, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, there is, as you say, no doubt inaccuracies and exaggerations and all that, but nonetheless there is something in that. You do have abilities that most of us don't have.
Probably trivial abilities like the statistics and so forth, and my memory. My memory is very good. But the thing is, with Rain Man, it was very much, they were trying to get every person with autism into one person.
But you have also written